For coming, as you all know, we're all on the same team, right? We learn a little bit, hopefully things that maybe we don't learn in yeshiva, because I think most of the teaching here is probably Gemara, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of a Musar, a little bit of mostly Gemara. I remember in yeshiva, they used to like teach the Parsha on the Friday, so you have something to say at Friday night or Shabbat by then your house. On Fridays? Okay, that's awesome. Nah, don't say that. You're being recorded. I mean, I'm recording myself, but your voice might come. You're not being recorded.
Where does it go?
It goes to, it goes on my Facebook, and also I have a YouTube channel. So it goes on my YouTube. Rabbi Lula, I'm not part of Torah anytime. Maybe I should ask them. I don't know. I should call them up. Okay, guys, so let's learn something that actually is very serious, putting all the jokes aside. Can everybody's attention? You see, guys, in this week's parsha, we learn a lot of, please be seated properly. Please be seated properly. Hey, I'm not here to discipline. You come in disciplined. You hear that? I don't want to send anybody out. I'm very serious. I don't want to send, but if I have to, I'll do it. But anyways, what happens is, in this week's parsha, guys, we learned something very interesting, and actually shows the power of education that our parents and our Rabbeim give us. If you look in this week's parsha, right, it's Yaakov Avinu getting married. He had all his kids except Binyamin born outside of land of Israel. You look at Avraham Avinu had no kids outside of Israel. He had all his kids in Israel, right? He had Yitzchak and Ishmael. And then when he remarried Hagar, that the Torah calls Keturah, he had another 5 or 6 kids, whatever the amount is. But we see that the only one that actually grew up to be a righteous person, a tzaddik, was only Yitzchak. Now, Yitzchak Avinu never left land of Israel because he was brought as a sacrifice. Just as you can't take a sacrifice outside of the walls of the Beit HaMikdash. So for Yitzchak Avinu, the borders of Israel was like the Beit HaMikdash. You couldn't walk out. He had 2 kids, Yaakov and Esau. Yaakov grew up to be a righteous person, and Esau came out to be the Rasha, whatever we call him, Esau or Rasha. Yaakov Avinu had 11 out of his 12 boys born outside of Eretz Israel, right? Plus 1 daughter, but all of them turned out to be tzaddikim. Without a question. They were all tzaddikim, right? That's why Ishmael is not part of the Jewish people. Well, he came from a different mother. Even though Esau came from Rivka, is not part of the Jewish people. But all the 12 children of Yaakov, the 12 boys, plus the daughter, Dinah, they're part of the Jewish people. What did we learn from this? Something very important. Yes, being raised or being born in Eretz Israel, no question that the Kedusha of Eretz Israel affects. No question. Right? It says the air of Eretz Israel makes us very smart. I agree with that. I mean, the Torah says that. But nevertheless, even if you're born outside of land of Israel, even if you live amongst a lot of impurity, just like, Yaakov Avinu was living by Lavan, his father-in-law. He was known to be Lavan Arami, Lavan Ramai, whatever, the swindler, the guy that used to cheat. But all tzaddikim came out. That's one lesson that we know from this week's parasha. I'm saying with the Torah that your parents give you, your Rabbeim give you, Be'ezrat Hashem, you're going to give it to your next generation, to your children and grandchildren. Even if you live in the Tarzanas or whatever, the North Hollywoods or in California, even in Vegas, Hawaii, wherever you live, doesn't matter. You could grow up to be like a very nice Jewish boy and girl. That's lesson number 1 that we know from this week's parasha. The next thing that we learn, actually, because I have a question to ask you. In this week's parasha, it says when Yaakov went out of land of Israel to get married, it says, Vayifga b'makom. I'm going to give you a little test. Literally means he reached a certain place. But the usual word for Vayifga, reaching, is Vayovo, like he came to a place. When it says Vayifka, how do the rabbis explain Vayifka? What does Vayifka mean? Vayifka b'makom. Rash and the Parsha says Vayifka has a special meaning. What? Literally means he reached. He encountered, but there's a problem with that because Vayifka usually means when 2 people walk towards each other, they encounter each other. No, that's not what Rashi brings over here. What? That's when he left Haran. Vayifka means he reached. But again, encountering means when they both walk, right? But the land doesn't walk to you. So should have said Vayavo. So Rashi says over here, Vayifka has a very special meaning. It's one of the takonos, one of the things that Yaakov Avinu initiated that we follow now. The hint for you guys in Masechta Broches, Perek Dalet, 4th Perek of Masechta Broches. Humet Shachris. Okay, I'm saying the fathers, Abraham, who made the mincha, and who made Ma'ariv? Okay, Vayifka b'makom means Yaakov daven Ma'ariv. That's it. Vayifka means to pray. Can I ask you a simple question, people? Yaakov was in the house of shame and Aver for 14 years. He learned and he davened. He's not going to get married. He davens again. What's wrong with this guy? Go learn the language, become cool a little bit, With love on, you got to show that you're a spiffy guy, whatever you want to call it in English. I'm sorry. My English is not so good. The first thing he does, he prays. Isn't that a little strange? He just prayed for 14 years. I guess you need special prayers to go on a shidduch, huh? It's pretty scary. So the real answer, guys, is that, when you're in yeshiva, you're protected, right? What's the biggest yetzahara that you have in yeshiva? Okay, right. Not doing a mitzvah, drink a Coke, something, delicious food. There's no sins here. There's no place to do sins. When Yaakov was getting married, he was going to a place that he actually had many, many challenges. Who knows if he's going to overcome it? He didn't know. Correct? So when you're in yeshiva, you're protected. You're surrounded with kedusha the whole time. Once you get married, you go to the world, unless you are a kollel person, that you learn Torah the whole day. But most of us are professionals. We go to businesses. You have to deal with the secular world. Isn't that dangerous? Could be dangerous. Sometimes you get motivated to cheat, why not make extra money? Sometimes you work all the way close to Shabbat because we got to rush to make another dollar. So Yaakov knew that. He realized no matter whatever he did in yeshiva was not enough. Now that I'm getting into a new challenge, I got to pray, a new level of prayer. So the lesson that we learn, guys, that yes, we learn in yeshiva for 15, 20 years, and we get a lot of spirituality, a lot of Torah, but we have to know once we go to the world, a lot of challenges happen. I have to pray to God again that I shouldn't forget what I learned in yeshiva. It should continue with me. Very, very important. That's the second lesson that we learn. Clear, people? So lesson number one, no matter where you're raised, where you're grown up, where you're born, if somebody really wants to stay a religious Jew, he can do it. Lesson number two, never give up praying. Don't think because you're in yeshiva all your life, that's it. So you have made it. New challenges come, new difficulties come, and actually sometimes you might fail. I'm sure that some of you guys, know a lot of some people, that used to be in yeshiva, but once they went out and they saw challenges, they stopped being religious, unfortunately. I'm not judging them, but it happens when new challenges come and they test us, we might lose certain kedusha that you had a question, somebody had a question? Yeah.
How do you recommend you keep that kedusha throughout your life?
Okay, number one is everyday study Torah, no question. Everyday study Torah.
Yeah.
And then the Chafetz Chaim writes down in the first chapter of Shulchan Aruch, it's not just enough to learn Gemara. The Gemara, of course, halachas. You have to learn things that gives you yirat shamayim, fear of God, which basically is either Musar books, the books of ethics, or Chassidut, Chassidic philosophy. Those to actually teach you, the great potential you can reach, the greatness of God, the kindness of God, whatever it is, those things actually bring you to start a little bit, to become, to keep what you learned in yeshiva, definitely. All right? And also, when you buy a house, be in a religious community. Unless you go to a Chabad house, then your job is to make others religious. But if, let's say, you're a private business person, definitely be in the religious community. Like in in the Persian community, many years ago, a Persian lady covering the hair was unheard of. But people started becoming a little bit religious. Even the ones that never covered their hair. If they move, let's say, to religious areas, to Fico Robertson, or let's say even in the valley now, it's very, very religious. After a couple of months, they start covering their head and they start putting a wig or whatever, the tichel, whatever you call it. That's it. If you're in a religious place, that will push you to stay religious.